So today we gather here to harvest the results of these collective experiences and together chart a way forward for our nation's future. We are here to collect and build on the best practices that we have all recorded in the last 6 months. So today, if you are the custodians of best practices in the fight against COVID-19, you must remember that best practice is never implemented retrospectively. It must be applied instantaneously. Timely and instantaneous implementation of what has worked is what will take us forward and most significantly secure the gains that we continue to make. But as we implement best practice after council of this conference, our shared goal must also remain in sight. And this goal is simple: victory over COVID-19 and nothing else. And we must achieve it with zero option. And to achieve it, we must begin by building positive resilience. We must move away from tactical response to this pandemic to strategic response. Instead of symptomatic reactions to this crisis, we must move to structural reactions that are long-term and transformative. And this is what I call positive resilience. Being able to anticipate the patterns of this pandemic and responding to it transformatively and building back better. My third invitation to you, ladies and gentlemen, is for you to do a pre-mortem analysis. This is about early warning, but more fundamentally, it is about long-term response. If indeed we are to shift our response from tactical to strategic interventions, we must do a simulation of how this will work. A shift from symptomatic response under COVID-19 to structural response under universal health coverage must be well thought out. How, for instance, will the environment respond to this shift, and what are the enablers and disablers of this undertaking? Pre-mortem analysis will help us chart the path to sustainable health provisioning for all. Using this model, the conference should therefore give us counsel on how to promote preventative medicine over symptomatic care. It should guide us on how to use the lessons learned from the COVID-19 experience in order to anchor the full national rollout of the universal health coverage, one of the pillars of my administration's agenda for the nation. Allow me now to suggest a framework for banking your experiences of the last 6 months in this conference. This framework has 3 elements. First, I want us all to do a post-mortem analysis of how we have handled the COVID-19 crisis 6 months after it began to manifest itself in our country. Begin by looking at the forecasting of the spread of the virus. If all our models had projected severe scenarios that did not happen, was it because we were forewarned, or was it because of the swift interventions that we put in place? How does our national response compare with others within the region, the continent, and the world? Is there something that we could have done better? And are there lessons we should carry with us to the strategic phase of this war? Ladies and gentlemen, and I am not asking you to ponder these questions because we have failed. To the contrary, I believe we have done remarkably well, and that is why we have begun to flatten the curve. But to do better, we must remain brutally honest with our approaches, because intellectual honesty is critical to building resilience going forward. Ladies and gentlemen, secondly, after doing a post-mortem analysis, I invite you to do some in-mortem analysis. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in the middle of a crisis, as you all know, and we must analyze as it unfolds and changes form. The good news, though, is that in the middle of this crisis, the curve is beginning to flatten. However, we must not celebrate this happy moment too soon, but rather celebrate it with a great deal of caution. More so because the curve begins to flatten after it reaches its highest point. This point is also called the inflection point. And it is the most dangerous point because the curve can either flatten and de-escalate or take an upward surge. My appeal to all of you as experts, practitioners, and leaders is therefore to deliberate on our in-mortem condition. Although the curve, as I said, is beginning to flatten, could it surprise us by taking an upward surge at this inflection point?